Hello, everybody. Thank you for signing on and joining us today for our Let's Chat Post-Secondary Pathways session. Joining us today, we have Charity Freeman, who is going to be our moderator for this session. So I am going to hand it over to Charity to get us started. But I just wanted to give her a big thanks for taking some time out of her afternoon and busy schedule. We definitely really appreciate it. And I know she's going to lead us in a great conversation. Charity?
Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to have this conversation today with some really amazing people and some great folks who have a lot to share about different experiences pertaining to post-secondary pathways for students. And so my name is Charity Freeman. I am the Associate Director of Teacher Training with Discovery Partners Institute. We are a part of the University of Illinois system, and I'm super stoked also here as a former K-12 CS educator to have some conversations with folks around post-secondary options. We know that college, attending a four-year institution is not for every student, but we also don't often know as parents or educators what the next steps are or what they should be, or even where to go to find the resources to help our students make these informed decisions. So today we're going to have conversations with Akilah Smith, Evelyn Van Till, and Justin Barker. I'm going to ask as we go through and have conversations with our panelists that you all will briefly introduce yourselves, share your title, your organization that you're here representing. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how your current role relates to post-secondary education. All right, gonna kick it off with Akilah, if you wouldn't mind going ahead with your introduction.
Sure. Thank you so much, Charity, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Akilah Smith Easter. I am the Department Chair of Urban Agriculture at Olive Harvey College, which is one of the city colleges of Chicago. My background is I have a degree in biology and physiology, so I just transitioned into this role of Department Chair at Olive Harvey. At Olive Harvey, this is a new department. So I am working from the ground up currently with developing curriculum with a new lens, I would say, more focused on people who are trying to get immediately into industry with their post-secondary education. And that is pretty much my background pertaining to this post-secondary talk.
Awesome. It is a wonderful pleasure to have you with us today, Akilah. I'm going to also now pass the mic to Evelyn.
Thank you so much to you and to everyone for joining this event. I'm Evelyn Van Till, and I serve at Apprenti. Apprenti is a nonprofit that is working on behalf of the Department of Labor to stand up National Tech Apprenticeship System. And in that capacity, we also work with a variety of organizations and educators, schools, governmental organizations on pre-apprenticeship programs as well. And excited to join. I am looking forward to a robust conversation and sharing information about a National Tech Apprenticeship Program and pre-apprenticeship pathways.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Evelyn. Last but not least, we have Justin.
Hi, everybody. Justin Barker, and I am a regional manager with Certiport. So Certiport partners with Microsoft, Adobe, Intuit, Autodesk, other large technology companies, and we're their credentialing arm. That just means that Certiport's delivering certifications all over the world in these technologies, getting individuals certified so that they can take those credentials into the workplace and get better entry-level work. And I would say that the work that I do relates to post-secondary education in a couple ways. First, many of the certification programs that Certiport offers, they qualify for post-secondary education credits. So if you get a credential, you'll also be awarded some college credit. And then another way that this relates to post-secondary education is we're very much a bridge between post-secondary education and a career path. The main purpose of a certification is a credential that you're able to take into the workplace and get better entry level work. So thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Before we get started, I did want to remind our attendees that please go ahead if you have any questions, please let us know. Brill will be wonderful and awesome in making sure that our speakers will have each of our panels to be able to address your questions. So as we proceed with our conversations, don't be shy. Now is a great time to put your questions forth. So first question, I'll start directing to Justin. How has an increased demand for professionals in STEM and with STEM skills changed the landscape of your work in particular?
Okay. I've been with Certiport for just a little over 10 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes in those 10 years. So yeah, we're seeing STEM related careers grow at an exponential rate, really, at this point. Within the last 10 years, I've seen the team double, or at least nearly double at Certiport. So we've got a lot more people supporting what we're doing. But more importantly, I've seen thousands of schools register in my time with Certiport, thousands of new schools, I should say, because we've had tens of thousands of schools that we're already delivering certification, but I've seen a lot of schools registering to deliver certifications so that students can get certified, taking their credentials into the workforce. I've seen tens of thousands of students in Illinois alone over the last 10 years get certified, and they're able to take those certifications into their entry-level work. They're getting better jobs because of it. I don't anticipate that growth will slow down because digital skills are becoming more important, and we're seeing a huge gap in between the individuals that possess those digital skills and the way that a company needs to use those. So if anything, certification's a growing field for us. We're going to see quite a few different parties emphasize certification in the future, and it's going to be something that many hiring managers are going to be looking for.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Akilah, this question will be for you. Have you seen an increase in student interest or an enrollment in your programs, particularly at the community college level? And why do you think this is the case?
Well, I have kind of a unique angle. Cannabis recently became legal in Illinois, so we actually put the science behind cannabis. That's one of our pathways under urban agriculture. So yes, there's been a lot of interest. But when people enter into our classes, they're starting to see more of the science, not the stereotypical, stoner perspective, but people are starting to understand the science. So we have to teach things like photosynthesis, understanding mechanisms. So I find that when you're creating curriculum that directly is interesting to the students versus I have to take this gen ed bio course, things like that, that's what we're starting to build up a lot of our interest. And also during the pandemic, a lot of students wanted to know about the science of, what a virus is, what immunology is, and those different types of things. So we had to have these kind of polite debates in class where people are really trying to understand how their body works and functions. So I think kind of the times are calling for more people to understand science and hopefully respect science a little bit more. But yes, definitely we've had an increase based on, new avenues. I think of when was the last time a new subject came into, the college realm? And Justin, I probably would say IT was the last major, huge change. So, that's how I always apply to this cannabis pathway of people understanding, it's more biochemistry, all of these different components. So yes, definitely has increased. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to direct that question to Evelyn as well. Have you seen an increase in interest and or enrollment in apprenticeship programs?
Absolutely. What's exciting to see is that, we've had an opportunity that's been active in other, advanced manufacturing, the building trades. Apprenticeship has long been a means of growing talent and providing a clear path of entry with steps and additional pay increases as people gain competencies, clear components. But we're now seeing that application in technology, and that technology really is impacting all companies are tech companies and employ tech workers and have tech adjacent roles. Micro credentialing, the process that Justin was sharing in terms of acquisition of knowledge and small components or modules or experiences, absolutely has resurgence in tech, or a new clearer way to gain knowledge or certify competencies, and an increased latticing of those pathways as cyber, machine learning, and other aspects of technology, including gamification, really blur the space of software development, software design, software engineering, testing, and creative or digital experiences. So yes, we're seeing definitely a rise in interest and use. We're also seeing major companies peel back on whether college is required to enter those tech roles. And that's a clear indication that, when Google and Apple and Microsoft and so on are saying, no, you can enter technology to tech roles and not have a CS degree. It's a signal not only for themselves, but across the market that that's a pathway. And in fact, that is, why Apprenti came to be. We were asked, Apprenti's parent company, the Washington Technology Industry Association, had convened 22 industry partners, major tech companies in Seattle, who were looking at the reality of, we want to encourage more people to go to college, more people to major in computer science education. But as a country, we're producing 75,000 CSED grads a year. And we can certainly increase that. But we're also looking at over 3.9 million jobs that are already open. And we're increasingly or exponentially increasing the number of tech jobs that are out there relative to the number of people that are prepared to go into those jobs. And we'll never close that gap. As an English major, I will share, those numbers do not add up. Even I can see that you will never make an impact on 3.9 million jobs. Plus, it just keeps growing. The number of jobs that are open, the experience that is asked for them, when you're only producing as a nation 75,000 computer science grads a year. And we have an incredible, capable workforce that don't have baccalaureate degrees. In the United States, less than 35% of the population in the workforce has a baccalaureate degree or higher. And so that leaves 70 million or more people who could be shifted to technical roles, technical adjacent roles. Tech is a multiplier. So for every technical job that is created, there's usually 6 or 7 tech adjacent jobs that come with that to support in terms of Scrum or project manager or QA tester or other roles that come along with the team or the apparatus of building a technical product. And so, yeah, absolutely, to the point of your question, we're seeing an increase of registered apprenticeship usage in tech, and excitingly for post-secondary, an increase of pre-apprenticeship programs, as well as pre-apprenticeship applications in the adult workforce space.
That is phenomenal to hear. One of the things that you said that I hear often is that every company is a tech company. That's something that I've been telling my students for a long time. So it's really great to hear someone who's actually in the industry who agrees and sees the relevance of CS in every industry and in every space.
Absolutely. Just to echo that, and I just want to make sure to amplify that point that you're sharing there. Some of the bigger users of registered apprenticeship in the tech space are financial institutions, insurance institutions, educational institutions. And of course, we've got our Microsofts and our Amazons that are absolutely the biggest users of a registered apprenticeship. But increasingly, we're seeing just across all sectors, all verticals. And I think there's a lot of expansion work that we can do in the Midwest, in our spaces in agriculture, in energy, and certainly in manufacturing. There's technical roles like cybersecurity, software analyst, software developer that are being employed in those sectors. And we just need to get more and more people skilled up to be able to do so.
Absolutely. And I see that Akilah was nodding her head as well.
I want to, Evelyn, you stated that statistic of, and I think because many of us probably have our bachelor's degree, we're in a bubble of thinking that everybody, but there's not that high, I mean, there is a good percentage, but that's what we have to start to open our perspective to understand that people still have that level of intelligence, but they may not have that bachelor's degree. And the people that are doing the hiring, we have to get out of our bubble and stop hiring, only from our network and only people who look like us, so that we can have that diversity that the fields need.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to extend that question a little bit further. Aside from the misconception that a bachelor's degree should be like the entry level requirement for students as they're kind of endeavoring down their post-secondary pathways, what other common misconceptions do you see, particularly surrounding community college, from the student perspective, from the educator perspective, and also on account of parents as well?
I want people to stop looking at community college as like 13th grade or, things like that. So I think students need to have that perspective, and parents as well. I could tell you stories of parents. I can't talk to parents, but parents still email me asking me about their students. So the level of independence that is needed. But and people assume that community college is a lower level education. And that's what I want to emphasize as well. We still have the same type of qualified instructors that choose to probably be immersed within the community so they can be slightly more impactful. And I think people just need to understand that these 2 years, if you take 2 years, count towards a baccalaureate degree. So it's all encompassing, and people tend to put community college as a lower level, but it's just, more affordable. I would love for my daughter to go to community college so that save money on my pockets. I can't imagine what tuition is going to be in 16 years for her. So I just want to, so having that perspective of, dismantling that perspective that it's a lower level education, it's 13th grade, like I like to say, and just making sure that people understand that they are getting a quality education. But as an educator, we have to have that same perspective as well, and have that same demand on our students to be able to fight all of these misconceptions.
I love the way you put that, dismantling perspectives, because it's not just a matter of changing them. We folks actually have to acknowledge the structures that are currently in place that are supporting those misconceptions, and then begin to take them down from there. Absolutely. I love that imagery. When do you recommend that students start considering community college as an option after high school? Are you having the conversations now with your kid? Do you wait until they're 6 and 7? Do you have the conversation at middle school? Is it when they start high school? Like, at what point would you say is a good place to begin to have those conversations?
I think if you have a community college that is truly community focused, a lot of kids have already been immersed within that college. They've gone to after school programs, they participated in community advocacy programs at that institution. So I think as young, like you stated, like there are daycares at community college. I think these are the times where people can get comfortable and familiar with that campus to where it's just a natural progression. A lot of students we have high school bridge programs, but we also have high school students who are attending community college classes so that they can easily transition into their 4-year institution if they choose to go to that. So I would say if it's a true community college, you have already been immersed. I remember when I was growing up, I did the summer camps at the community colleges. the continuing education aspect at the community colleges, the adult education, the GED opportunities. These are all things that have already, you don't have to be enrolled in the college to participate. And that's what my whole thing, why I wanted to work at a community college, is so that I could be immersed and be a part of a community that I live in and serve that community as well.
That is beautiful. I don't think I'd ever paid much attention to the communal aspect of a community college. So that's an excellent perspective. Thanks for dismantling my own kind of preconceived notions about what CCs are. That's good to hear. Justin, I have a question for you. How do you know that which certificates are considered most necessary or most valuable or most of interest to employers? What goes into those decisions? Do you know?
Okay. Yeah, and I really like this question because not all certification programs, hold the same value. As we've seen, the certification field grow, we've seen many companies kind of throw their hats in the ring, and certifications are sometimes getting a little bit watered down. So I would say that first, you got to look at the criteria, such as who is backing this certification. If it's a large company like Certiport, and we're not the only name in town, but if it's a strong name behind who's delivering the certification, you're typically going to get a strong program. But more importantly, what Certiport does is we deliver Microsoft certifications into industry, Adobe certifications into industry. So you're not certifying with Certiport, but you're certifying with the big tech giants out there. You're validating the skills that you know how to use their software, you know how to bring that skill set to an employer. So it's important that you're looking for a strong certification program that will bring validity onto your resume. But if you're kind of looking, if you're talking about a particular career path and looking at a specific job, I would say that the best way to look for certification programs that are going to be meaningful to you would be to hop on a job board. I like to use Indeed.com. Just because it's easy to search for a specific skill set and a location, and you'll be able to pull up all kinds of jobs, a huge variety. Find jobs that you're interested in and see what skill sets are needed in those jobs. Chances are you're going to find multiple certifications that are going to validate those skill sets for those employers, and it's going to knock down some barriers for you. A lot of companies they're a little shy to hire somebody that's not already trained, and so you'll start to see jobs posting disclaimers that you have to have 5 years experience. Really what that is it's an excuse not to spend training dollars on you. But if you can bring that skill set into the employer, and certification will certainly validate that you have that skill set, it's going to knock down those barriers and get you better entry level positions.
That is great to hear. It's actually, your passion is very much contagious. I love that you are very much excited about what you do and that comes through when you're actually communicating about your job. That's awesome. Thanks for that. I have another question for you. When do you recommend that students begin pursuing certification or training programs? From what I understand, many of them actually don't have necessarily an age requirement, but at what phase in a student's academic trajectory or academic career would you recommend that they begin that journey?
Yeah, and you're right. There's not necessarily an age requirement on these certifications. I see students at the middle school level taking certifications. Now, those certifications oftentimes serve a different purpose than the certifications that you'll be doing with my company. Oftentimes, you're starting at a younger level to develop kind of a habit, if you will, and a trajectory towards more, higher level or more professional certifications. So we'll see students certifying as young as middle school, but I'd say the sweet spot for certification would be high school, college age students, even displaced workers. There's certainly no upper end on the age requirement for certification because we see individuals changing career paths all the time. And anybody that's going into a new career, they're absolutely going to need to validate the skill sets that are going to be required in that career. Starting at high school, I would say that somebody should be looking into certification, thinking about their entry-level job. They should be thinking about what skills are going to get them, the type of position they want, the type of money that they're after, and they should work towards that with certification and whatever other educational components would work to their favor.
That is fascinating. I did not realize that a middle schooler could actually earn a certification. Right. Okay. So as I'm seeing Evelyn and Akilah's head going up and down, like, wow, okay. This is news to us.
We actually have a program that's it's IC3 digital literacy. Now I see a lot of high schools getting IC3, but a lot of middle school students as well. Digital literacy is a huge topic right now, and digital literacy is a very broad topic. It means a lot of different things, but really, if you get a certification such as IC3, it's going to make you more successful with a Microsoft certification, with an Adobe certification. So it's only going to set you up for more success. On top of that, you can take an IC3 certification and put it on your resume, and that's going to be appealing to an employer because it tells that employer that you have digital skills that a huge percentage of the population are not going to have. Companies are hiring people all the time that they think that they know how to use a computer as a productivity tool, but most of us are used to getting on social media, and we're not used to using a computer the way a company would expect us to use a computer. So some of these baseline certification programs, they're fantastic. And yes, they're earned at the middle school level, but certainly there's a lot of value for a high school student or a college student to earn those credentials as well.
Absolutely. Understandable. I'm going to come back to Evelyn. You mentioned a pre-apprenticeship earlier, and just so that we are all kind of level set and on the same page, what is the difference between a pre-apprenticeship and an apprenticeship?
That's a great question, and I think it ties really neatly into a lot of what we're talking about, which can, in many ways, blur the lines between high school, college, work-based learning programs, and there's a great deal of opportunity with the stackable credentials to earn credit in high school for college, as well as to, when completing apprenticeships, to complete micro-credentials that can be applied towards college experiences. But this distinguishing pieces between a pre-apprenticeship and a registered apprenticeship, and they are always connected because pre-apprenticeship programs need to have a registered apprenticeship that it aligns to, and typically are more exploratory. So a pre-apprenticeship program should provide an opportunity for students or learners to explore careers, to look at career clusters. A registered apprenticeship is a job. It's learning and earning. It's a full-time with benefits job that's credentialed in its own right. So in the same way that colleges and universities, the Department of Education gives colleges and universities an ability to assemble experiences and curriculum into degrees, the Department of Labor does the same thing with industry and micro-credentials and other training to assemble that into a national portable certificate of occupational equivalency. So the acquisition of stackable credentials and work-based learning experiences, time plus competency, can result in the equivalency of a baccalaureate degree for a particular career pathway. There's another difference where pre-apprenticeship may include work-based learning, but doesn't necessarily have to include a paid component. It can sometimes be helpful, but oftentimes the acquisition of micro-certs or the knowledge and experience gained in a pre-apprenticeship can be transferred into a registered apprenticeship when, and this is the critical component, you have an employer. Registered apprenticeship always includes an employer. An apprentice is not that employer. We're an intermediary. We connect people with employment and employers with employees that are skilled to learn and earn, and to help address what Justin shared of that need or that request that employers have that people bring a certain number of years of experience to a job, and the challenge that we have of we will never get more senior or mid-level people if we don't have more junior people. If we don't hire those juniors, we will never have more people to be senior. And it's a benefit in many ways to the seniors to be able to mentor and transfer knowledge and be able to see things with a fresh pair of eyes. There's a great article Jason Lyman wrote about, if you don't hire juniors, you don't deserve seniors. And I share that because there's a lot of, as we dismantled misconceptions, some of the misconceptions around apprenticeship and around talent acquisition or talent learning, talent development, is that you always have to hire someone with experience, or you always have to hire that senior, that's the quickest, most direct, or going to provide the best ROI, the best return on your investment. And Jason provides a great business case for why that is not true, for why you need those juniors on your team to help assist the seniors, to ask those fresh-based questions, to also be the person to delegate to. Not every task needs a senior with 20 years of experience or 15 years of experience or even 5 years of experience to do the thing. The thing that needs to be done can oftentimes be broken down into smaller micro tasks and be given to someone who would be learning while they do it, and be guided by someone who can mentor and coach and manage that process. So pre-apprenticeship is a great way for people to explore and gain some level of micro credentials and experiences. And certainly echo Justin's, the earlier that you start that micro credentialing, the longer, the more things that you can learn. And really, it's, I think, a part of a larger kind of adoption of growth mindset or lifelong learning. It's no longer the case that you can just go to college or just go to high school or just go to whatever and be like, well, I graduated, I'm now done. I'm done learning. I mean, I don't know that that was ever true. It's certainly not been true in my lifetime. But I think as a system, that's something we're starting to see come apart at the seams because changes in tech are moving at such a quick pace that you cannot possibly teach all the technical tools required in a school-based environment. You need to move that learning into a work-based piece and not stop at some kind of educational place. It's important to see that as you not only change employment or change careers, but as you try to do new projects, tackle a new integration system or tackle a new migration system or tackle some of your security challenges, that may be requiring you as a worker or you as a company to upskill workers to meet those changes in technology that's moving at a faster pace than people's experiences to acquire and apply those skills. So hopefully that gives you a sense of pre-apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, as well as some of the pieces that are important components of them and the ways that they blur. Over 60% of the people coming through the apprenticeship program currently have some kind of baccalaureate degree. And yet when they are applying, many of them are working in occupations that did not require a college degree. And they're frustrated, they're underemployed, and they're looking for ways to apply and advance and shift that pay equity. They've invested in the educational system and they may have earned an associate's degree, they often may have earned a baccalaureate degree. Sometimes it's even in computer science, but by the time they graduated and then were looking for a job, their skills were not at the place that the employers were looking to have, and they needed to have some micro credentials to bridge that next mile to make it into employment. And that's what apprenticeship can help provide, is a pathway of credentials and experiences.
Wow, you have shared a lot. I am processing so much of that now. Even as you mentioned, the the value of hiring junior level employees, the need for lifelong learning, not just as, just a little skill that you mentioned on your resume, but actually something that you're endeavoring to pursue throughout your career. You actually spark a question now that I'm completely thinking off the cuff. You mentioned that tackling new skills, so tackling new challenges actually requires companies to upskill. And it's actually, I think the most pertinent example I can think of is the need for cybersecurity. How many of the challenges that we're now facing didn't exist 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. Can you share another example that you have encountered, either you or Justin or Akilah, where you've seen that our world, our technology, and even society in which we live moves at a faster pace than many of our experiences?
I guess I'd add machine learning to that, gamification. You mentioned certainly social media or cybersecurity, which are related challenges. But I'm guessing there's probably others that could be mentioned as well.
Yeah, I would echo machine learning. We do have some certification programs that align with cybersecurity. What's up and coming is artificial intelligence. It's only going to grow. Now I'm starting to think back to when I first started with Certiport 10 years ago. And at the time, Microsoft Office was considered technology. And over the last 10 years, that's evolved from Microsoft Office being technology to that's a business application. And then we saw a rise in jobs that require different coding skills. So all the credentialing in different programming languages became important to cybersecurity. Now we're seeing artificial intelligence. And I think what we're learning is a lot of students that are in college right now, they're going to be working in professions that it's a need that doesn't exist right now, but in 5 years, it's going to be huge. And that's where the jobs are going to be. I like what Evelyn had mentioned about lifelong learning, because if we're not continuing to put resources into bettering our skills, that technology is going to pass us behind. It's important that we continue getting credentials, we continue going and refreshing on our classes so that those opportunities that are present 5 years from now will be ours for the taking.
I just want to echo that and say human skills are the skills that are durable. That the technology skills will continue to evolve and change, and we'll have to adapt to learn. And that's the real piece.
And I will say the agriculture business is pretty much automated. If you want to get optimal plant growth, optimal yield, when you should have this certain lighting on. I know a lot of people started planting in their home, but the agriculture business is way larger than that. So even some of the modern dispensaries are fully automated with the watering cycles, the different phases of plant growth. So this is where farmers are having to adjust and having to come back and get an understanding. Their agriculture, our Department of Agriculture, DOA, sorry, I couldn't get it out. Department of Agriculture is offering certifications for farmers and things such as that to kind of help them catch up with all the technology so that their yields are as competitive and beneficial for them.
This is excellent. Because as we conceptualize what jobs look like today and envision what jobs will continue to look like tomorrow, I think this is where these conversations become especially vital, because we have individuals who are in various sectors in computing and, as Evelyn mentioned earlier, tech adjacent fields. But it's hard for students to envision a future that hasn't arrived yet, right? And so to have these conversations, I think is really helpful for those who are listening, educators and parents alike, to be able to see, oh, this is what jobs look like, because they don't look anything like the ones that we've applied for, right? As many of the jobs that we're seeing now, they didn't exist 5 and 10 years ago. So I am very much getting a kick out of this conversation. This is blowing my mind, and I'm super excited. I have another question, and actually, any of you can answer this. What do you feel should be prioritized when a student is making the decision about what post-secondary options they can choose?
I will say there's a couple factors that I look for when I'm talking to my students. Their level of maturity, and also and maturity can fall into that, but is this what they want to do? I ask them to really assess what they anticipate doing. Are you doing this because your parents are telling you to do this? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because you may not need this degree to be able to do that. I can connect you and through my network with somebody directly who will get you into this field right now. So one, I think students need to really assess and sit down. I'm sure an 18-year-old really doesn't even, everybody talks about what do you want to be when you grow up, but I don't think a lot of people understand what post-secondary education is, what it entails. I always suggest, I think they do need a life skills class. I spend almost every semester, the first 2 weeks, just explaining what college life is. No, you cannot hand this in 2 weeks late. Like all these different basic skills that they need, these professional skills, I like to say, for them to be successful. So these are some of the things to consider. Are you ready? You can take, I know that big phase is gap year and all those different things, but I think parents should really assess and be honest about themselves with their child instead of just forcing this dream of you're going to go to college, you're going to make this money, you're going to do this, but actually asking what the child, what they would like, or I should say adult, what they would like to do.
Right, of course, because they will always be our babies. But at this point, at this juncture, it's like, okay, you're not so much a child anymore. So making those decisions is an important step, absolutely, in empowering our students and to self-advocate and to acknowledge what their interests are. Of course, at the age of 15, 16, 17, we can't ask you to predict, without the magic 8 ball of what you're going to be doing when you're 42, but at least what is your next step now? What are you ready for now? What is your journey going to look like now? That's a really excellent point to lead with. Justin, did you have something to add?
I did, and I wanted to give Akilah an opportunity to respond first because that's her wheelhouse. She's the expert there. But I wanted to comment, a lot of the discussion we've already had, as you can see, there's a lot of different paths that we can take to get to where we want to be. Now, me personally, it was a personal decision at the time, but I did start at the community college. So hopefully that excites you, Akilah. I started the community college and I graduated with my associate's degree before taking that up to a university and ultimately getting a bachelor's degree in business management. That was my pathway for personal reasons that got me to where I wanted to be. But if there's something that I've learned at Certiport, it's that you don't necessarily need to go to college to make a good living. There's skill sets that you can acquire outside of a college education that will result in good living. I just happen to be working on a presentation that I'm going to be delivering in a few weeks. So I've got a lot of statistics and facts floating through my head right now. And one that comes to mind is, according to Georgetown University, 69% of men that hold an IT certification out-earn men in their field that have an associate's or bachelor's degree. And now, if you look at the flip side and you look at women, 63% of women that hold an IT certification out-earn women that have an associate or a bachelor's degree. And then if you look at office-related certifications, such as Microsoft Office Specialists, women that hold one of those certifications, they're on 48% of women that hold an office certification will out-earn women that go on to get their associate or bachelor's degree. So there's lots of different pathways that we can take to get to the end goal that we have for ourselves. I think it's important to just explore the career field that you're interested in and see what skills are going to need to be acquired along the way, and then decide what's your best path to get there.
I'm going to chime in and say people can't be what they don't see in general. And there's no better way for kids and families, teachers, others to explore what is possible than to connect with professionals who are in those fields of interest, and to recognize that those fields of interest are just of interest, and that no, you're not deciding what to do with the rest of your life, with like some finality. You're just trying to look at what are you interested in learning and growing to do. What kind of learner are you? Are you a person who likes to read and process? Do you like to verbally process? Do you learn by doing? And most people can learn in multiple ways, but they oftentimes gravitate towards one or more of those learning domains, and finding those good solutions for you. I loved college. I thought it was amazing. But I looked around at my classmates, and many of them were not having the joy of their life that I was having at learning and reading and getting an opportunity to think and process and explore and connect. And I think many of them might have been better off served in a different setting than they were finding themselves in. And I would say that, many of us oftentimes enrich our learning by doing. And so applying that learning in whatever domain, in whatever space you find yourself, whether it's, wanting to go, more of a traditional community college or university experience, braiding those work-based learning opportunities in, and not deferring them to after graduation. Too many people work on attaining a degree and find themselves at the end no longer having the passion that led them there, or finding themselves in a career that doesn't match their expectations of what they thought it was like to be a whatever it is. And so I encourage, anyone who's exploring, and could be at any age, to reach out to professionals who are doing things that you think are shiny or cool. If they're in any way of interest to you, to ask questions and what are you learning today? How are you getting your information? What kinds of certifications or learning experiences are important for this field? Who else might I talk to who could share information and light the way? Who would you recommend? What kind of professional associations, conferences, formal or informal mentoring programs might be out there, so that you can help your own self learn who you are, learn what you want to do, and make those well-intentioned steps in the right direction. But you're never going to stop that iterative process. You're on a lifelong journey of designing your own self and designing your career pathway. And I will say I've had 37 jobs, and I've reinvented myself many, many times on that pathway. I went to college with you'll figure it out. And that's a wonderful luxury to have, but it's a very expensive way to learn. And so I would really encourage every parent, every teacher who thinks, oh, well, they'll figure it out in college, to really have a moment of reflection and say, is that the best way to do that? Is that just a deferred exploration? Might there be some smaller incremental ways that we might break that down now, to say, let's see if we can explore some opportunities, engage in some STEM programs or other programs around, to try it on. Just like you do a costume or anything else, you go shopping for a new outfit, try it on, see how it feels. Does it wear comfortable? Does it pull you or stretch you in good ways? Or does it, leave you wanting to run in a different direction? And some jobs are a mix of all of those things. But in the end of the day, finding those internal reward systems where you are motivated to work because you like what you're doing and you enjoy the people in which you're working around, and the goals or mission that you're on.
You said a mouthful there. Okay, let me think. Let me make sure I can encapsulate most of what I've heard. I heard you can't be what you can't see. Absolutely. That's a big one. And I saw Akilah right over here with me with the snaps. Absolutely. I definitely enjoyed hearing your perspective of 37 jobs later. and how it's challenging to kind of blindly walk into this exploratory field of all of the careers and all of the industries and all of the opportunities and saying, yep, go for it. You'll figure it out when you get there. But you only got 4 years to do it. And technically it's more closer to 2 years because the first 2 are when you get your gen ed requirements knocked out of the way. And then for those 2 years, you can expensively, but in a timely and concise manner, figure out what you want to do with your life. It sounds absolutely ridiculous when we say it that way, but is that not what we're kind of expecting our students to do?
We're expecting people to have a magic crystal ball at like age 8 when we're asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They don't know who they are even today, much less how they would be when they're grown up. And they are just now exploring the world that they're currently in and the vocabulary and the words and how to just, even say what their emotions are, much less project some imagined future. The role I hold now, I never knew it existed. Not until about 3 or 4 years ago did I know that you could be, an apprentice program manager, or that UX or user experience was a thing. And absorbing knowledge, motivating to network and gain competency, and then find the right organizations to be of service in. That is just all you can do to try to manage your own career development, your own pathways, and we cannot project that down to 6 and 7 and 8 year olds. That's a tremendous question. That's a burden, I think, to put on kids, that I think constrains that growth and hosts in them an expectation that they should know, that other people know and that they just don't, and that they're not good enough or it's not enough in some way to not know that thing. And I think that would be maybe a better reframe of that question is, who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be tomorrow? What kind of self do you want to bring to the world of work today and tomorrow? And where would you like to put your skills to be of service?
Okay, I wasn't trying to get that so you would drop some more knowledge on me. Goodness, Akilah, did you want to add on? Please do.
Yeah, and I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we share our stories. We share that I've had 9 jobs. I'm not just department chair of urban agriculture. I have failed classes before. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but I've failed classes before, right? So I feel like we show this shiny version of ourselves, but we know all of the highs and lows that we had, and you have to share that with people so they understand that it's not going to be smooth riding because you have a bachelor's degree or these different things. You still are going to run into all of these different highs and lows. So I think it's like I'm always an advocate for making sure you're pulling one person up along with you. But I think sharing your story is significant. Even like we are sharing our pieces of our story today to give a realistic perspective of what this journey is. And Evelyn said, we don't know ourselves at 8. I am 40 years old, still don't know myself. So I'm still learning about myself. So I couldn't imagine what children, especially of this generation, are going through. So yes, I just wanted to add those 2 cents.
And nothing new to share about that, but I want to add to the experience so much wisdom in what Evelyn's saying. So much wisdom in that if you don't have passion for what you're doing, and if you don't love what you're doing every day, you're going to eventually fizzle out there and you're going to have to find something new. So that's what you should be considering with the big decisions you have to make in life. What career do you want to go into? Is what are you going to be passionate about? Everything else is going to fall in line, and we've got to accept failure, and we've got to be able to learn from failure. Like Akilah, I've had many failures along the way, and I've learned something from each failure. In the certification game, I'm certifying teachers all the time before they can certify their students. And I have a lot of teachers that won't take these exams unless they're certain they're going to pass. They're not trying something new, and they're not going to be able to pass some of this knowledge on to their students. Just an encouragement, try new things, find out what it is you're passionate about, and you're going to be so much happier in life.
This is all kinds of inspirational. I did want to go ahead and open up the questions to, or the opportunity for questions to be posed by members of our audience. If there are any questions, Abril, go ahead and share them our way now. I am totally loving this conversation. I can't believe it's almost over. All righty. Well, I'm going to ask maybe one or two more. Let's see what we have time for. Questions for, let's see. I'm an educator, so I'm going to ask on the behalf of on teachers. What is it that we can do in our current context? Much of the pressure that we receive as educators is to kind of streamline, herd our cattle right on down, or even just kind of guide them along the assembly line toward the four-year educational institution. What advice or support would you offer for educators who want to be able to share the alternative pathways and knowledge of those pathways with our students? What resources or advice would you share to our teachers?
In my opinion, career and technical education, that's what it's all about, right? Is alternative pathways. And there's some fantastic jobs that won't require a college degree. So yes, a college degree is going to be necessary for a lot of us to get to where we want to be. It was for me. But I know lots of successful people that didn't spend a day in the college classroom. They're entrepreneurs, and many of them have gone into apprenticeship programs, and they've learned, some skills that are in high demand. And, they're probably lacking, some business skills in some cases, which they could learn. And, there's things that we can pick up and learn all the time, but there's great career paths all over the map. Some will require college, others won't. Career technical education in our high schools, before Certiport, I didn't really understand exactly what that was, but I've certainly funneled all of my own children through career and technical education because I want them to try alternative pathways. I want them to be able to experience, what it's going to take to be successful with life. And I think career and technical education will provide them with that background. So I hold career and technical education dear to my heart. And I would encourage anyone to, take those CTE classes in high school to be able to explore different career pathways and see if it's for them.
Absolutely. Akilah and then Evelyn.
I think that as instructors, because I still teach, I think we need to have take the same advice that we give to our students. So making sure that they are open to learning new things. So I think as teachers, we need to be open and not saying that I am the all knowledgeable person of this topic. To introduce students, I think that would be, you are a well-versed instructor or teacher if you are open to introducing students to a pathway that you did not follow. And I think that that's a reflection of you understanding the diversity of the world, the diversity of the type of students, the diversity of the students that you teach. Have community college people come speak to your students. Have different workforce people come speak to your students. Engage your students, because your students, who is best at certain things. Maybe look at those social cues and bring those to the students to make sure that you are offering that exposure. I think a lot of teachers get stuck in their ways. I am one of those who had to make sure I opened up. So I think we have to make sure that we are moving out of our own way as instructors and taking the advice that we give to our students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think as a teacher myself, I find that is just profound advice to get out of our own ways, and in many ways to embrace project-based learning, to embrace the unknowns, the discovery, the curiosity of kids, that we don't have to be the fount of all knowledge, that people learn best when they discover things themselves. And we can set up projects, set up spaces in which students discover things, sometimes even things that they thought they didn't like. But after, tasting it or trying it in a different context, or under different circumstances, motivated possibly by their own interests, on a quest for solutions. Those interdisciplinary moments, those project-based learning moments can be really deep opportunities for kids and adults to learn things in an applied context that weaves things together so that it's not, well, here's a box called math, here's a box called biology, here's a box called engineering, and over here is a box called creativity or the arts, but rather kind of weaving all of that together in a project around agriculture or a project around other community-based challenges that can often be very much interdisciplinary, or could be looked at, using different lenses to get different kinds of outcomes or different kinds of learnings. That a soil science project or a community garden project could go in a lot of different directions, right? Just even planting seeds in a pot can go in a lot of different directions. You can decorate the pot. You can talk about the soil science composition or ecosystem of the soil. You can talk about the plant growth and phases and light, and you can talk photosynthesis that you brought up earlier. It can go in a lot of different directions, and that those don't have to be put in boxes and compartmentalized, but rather be evoked or utilized in a tremendously engaging way that helps empower students and learners across all ages to engage in creativity and making things and not just consuming them.
Very, very good. Making and creating things rather than just consuming them. I like that a lot. Good deal. Did we have any other final comments as we're wrapping up? Akilah, did you have anything that you'd like to share, Justin, Evelyn?
It's kind of piggybacking on what Evelyn was saying earlier, is that you have to be able to see what you want to be. I grew up in Iowa. I didn't see anybody within the science field that looked like me. I never even had a teacher who looked like me. So only until I saw my soror, Mae Jemison, as an astronaut, that's when I was like, oh, science is available to everybody, those different types of things. So I think as an instructor or within a workforce or within, if you're preparing people for, post-secondary opportunities, make sure that you're showing images, sharing stories of diverse backgrounds to make sure that students know that they fit in. There's already this awkwardness at 18 and 19 of trying to figure out who you are, those different types of things. I think we need to make sure we share as many resources, like I said earlier, the stories, but present things to people, to your audience, to make sure that they see people who look like them. And if you can't find people who look like them, that tells you that there's a problem and that's a gap within the industry. So that's one of my major things with a DEI perspective, of making sure that I let little girls see me in my community so they know what is available to them.
And I've really loved this discussion. This has been a great hour. I'll just kind of echo kind of those same sentiments. My life experiences are different than your life experiences. And I think we need to embrace our differences. It's those differences that are oftentimes our strengths. Those strengths, when we bring those to an employer, that's going to make them more successful. You're going to be more successful. So we need to embrace our differences and turn them into our strengths.
Amen and hallelujah to that, for sure. Absolutely. I think there was a question from the audience about boot camps, and so I just wanted to pick up that on a thread of, I would say that boot camps, like many other experiences, can be good. they can be a great investment, and much like micro credentials or going to community college or going to get any kind of learning experience can be a tremendous thing if it aligns to what you want to do and it's a quality product. And so that would be the piece, is to evaluate the outcomes, the alignment. There are many people who've gone to college who then go to a boot camp. There's always, of course, many people who go to boot camps and the ongoing see it as another micro credential, because that boot camp experience, even at a maximum of 22 weeks, and many of them are 12 to 14 or maybe 7 to 8, depending on what occupational competencies, the projects, the languages, what you're trying to do. But oftentimes that's just the foundation. That's the start point. That's the level set to get you functionally literate, with some basic competencies. And then going on the job, you learn, okay, I'm not actually using Java. My first assignment is to learn Python, or my first thing is I have to learn how to take this AWS cert class, or I have to, as you move and progress in your career, that boot camp is not, again, the end. It's the beginning of another competency set acquisition. And it can open a pathway, a career set, but then frequently, again, you're going to have micro credentials that extend and move that career forward as you start to specialize and acquire new knowledge. And so boot camps can be tremendous. They can also be integrated with community college environments. And many boot camps are starting to see opportunities in the high school space as well. So there's a lot of ways in which that can be integrated in with registered apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship programs increasingly being formalized across the states. Many departments of education at the state level are granting credits towards graduation for acquisitions of micro-credentials or certifications, including languages and or completion of a pre-apprenticeship program. So all of these things, I think, very much, as I wrap up, can be braided together in a lifelong learning pathway that helps you find and explore and give back to the community in the best way that you can leverage your skills.
Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap up our conversation today. I want to say thank you so much to our panelists, to Akilah, to Justin, to Evelyn. You all have shared some wonderful tidbits with us today about post-secondary pathways, about different options for our students to consider, to just think about, to not even have to commit to right here and right now, but options for us to be aware of. And as we're looking at our just evolving society and our evolving workforce, these are all really wonderful options that are accessible and equitable for students. And yes, I love it. Thank you so much for your time today and your expertise. Please be on the lookout for all of the wonderful comments that are ensuing in all of these different spaces on YouTube and on Twitter. You all are phenomenal, and I greatly appreciate the work that you're doing and the support that you're giving to our students. So thank you. I'm going to turn the mic back over to Brill as we wrap up.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Just to echo what Charity said, I want to say thank you from CS for Success. We greatly appreciate you taking this time out of your evening. This is a fantastic discussion. We had a lot of positive feedback in the chat, so much so I don't think anyone was thinking of questions because they were really just soaking in everything that you were saying. But this was great. CS for Success, we're really focused on trying to make CS education more equitable, accessible, and inclusive. And obviously part of that is focusing on what is the next step and how do we make sure that as we prepare students that they also have access to pathways that are going to reinforce what we're providing in the high school space. So we are excited to continue this discussion after the fact. For those of you interested in learning more about CS for Success, please check out the information under this video on YouTube. And again, big thank you to all of our panelists, our partners who are participating in this discussion, and for a wonderful evening. Please join us for our next Let's Chat session on November 8th The link is in the chat. Thank you, everyone, and good night.